Good day, fellow citizens, and welcome back to ZDE Gaming. Today we're going to do a deep dive on the launch of Pyro, starting with what it is, the history surrounding it, and finally what it actually means to the game. Near the end of the video, I'll give my take on its importance going forward based on my career in the software industry, so stay tuned and let's dive in. In the farthest corners of the galaxy, beyond the glimmering stability of Stanton, lies a star system that few dare to venture into, Pyro. This forsaken place is known not for its beauty or promise, but for its unrelenting lawlessness. The system is a smoldering graveyard of worlds, a haunting reminder of the universe's untamed frontier. At the center of it all burns a dying star, once the lifeblood of a thriving hub. It now sputters and falters, casting a dim, crimson light across the desolate planets and fractured moons that remain. Planets here are barren, scarred by long-forgotten conflicts and abandoned industries. Their ecosystems long since stripped away. The skies are choked with the debris of broken space stations, derelict ships, and forgotten colonies. For those who still make their home in the shadow of the dying star, Pyro is a place of danger, decay, ruthless survival. More chaotic than Stanton, Pyro is a far cry from the glimmering corridors of trade and industry, a system where rules have no meaning. The few ships that navigate its treacherous asteroid fields and shattered orbits are constantly at risk, not just from the hostile environments, but from each other. Here, piracy thrives in the emptiness between planets, and smuggling runs are the heartbeat of the system's economy. To survive, you either join the chaos or become a casualty of it. The system is divided into factions, each one more ruthless than the last. These groups, like space gangs, fight for the territory, power, and lucrative resources scattered across the system. But loyalty is fleeting in Pyro. Trust is a commodity you simply can't afford. One moment, you'll find yourself aligned with a faction, sharing drinks and stories over the flickering hollow ads of dimly lit bars and the forgotten space stations. Next, that very same faction may turn on you, your guns aimed at your back as they fight to claim your spoils. Being friendly with one group could easily make you a target for another. The only constant here is the struggle for power and profit. Those willing to take the risk, the rewards are vast. Hidden among the asteroid fields and scattered moons are some of the galaxy's most valuable minerals, resources worth dying for. The value of these minerals is unparalleled, often worth more than a lifetime worth of trade. The system's dying star may make mining operations difficult, but it also produces some of the richest veins of material ever found in the galaxy. The tempting prize, but a dangerous one. For the miners and resource gatherers who dare to brave Pyro, every haul could mean the fortune of a lifetime, or a fiery end at the hands of a pirate faction looking to claim what's yours. With every ship that leaves port, there's a looming threat of ambush. The ever-present risk to those valuable resources might never make it back to the safe market. And yet, even in the face of overwhelming danger, the promise of riches keeps the brave and the foolish coming back. It's the old adage, great risk, great reward. But here, it's not just the void of space that'll kill you. It's the unforgiving factions, the ever-present pirates, cutthroat smugglers, and the ever-looming threat that someone, somewhere, is waiting to claim what you've worked so hard to earn. In the end, it's not just about survival and chaos, it's about mastering it, finding your place within its fractured system, building alliances where you can, but never forgetting that in this place, alliances are as fragile as the ship's hull on an asteroid storm. For those with the guts to make it, Pyro is a system where fortunes are made and lost in the blink of an eye. But remember this, when the star burns this red, there's always someone watching. Always someone waiting for you to make your next mistake. So what's the deal? Why has Pyro taken so long to come to the game? Let's break it down. Let's rewind the clock a little bit. Pyro was first teased years ago during Star Citizen's initial Kickstarter. In fact, it was one of the original 100+ star systems planned for the game's first launch. Yep, that's right, 100 systems. Big dreams, big promises, and Pyro was meant to be one of them. At that time, Pyro was meant to be a massive, fully realized star system, just like Stanton. loaded with planets and points of interest and a rich ecosystem of gameplay possibilities. It was going to be the central part of the game's universe, right from the start. But then something happened. In December of 2017, we got Alpha 3.0 and the launch of Stanton. That's when things really started to shift. The focus went from new systems like Pyro to core game mechanics of Star Citizen. Stuff like trading, mining, and refining, and the work on the whole Stanton system itself. And honestly, that was a huge shift for this project. I think we all saw that Stanton was taking priority, just like the need for a stable, functional game environment. Pyro, well, was kind of put on the back burner. Now, you might be wondering, why the change? What happened to Pyro's big launch? Well, it's a little more complicated than things just got delayed. Initially, Pyro was supposed to be just like Stanton in terms of planets, points of interest, and overall gameplay scope. In fact, it was going to be this huge, fully fledged system right out of the gate. But over time, that scope was drastically reduced. Remember those systems we were promised? Engineering, repair mechanics, contested zones, exploration. Yeah, a lot of those ideas got scaled back. Even the size and number of planets in Pyro down. The IG kept saying the same thing, right around the corner. But at some point, they shifted their mentality to focus on smaller iterations rather than delivering this big bang approach. As a software developer myself, I totally get that philosophy. Deliver what you can, iterate, improve over time. But here's the catch. That should have been communicated early on. Proper expectations weren't set for this gradual scaling back, and instead we were promised a huge experience, and every time that promise was made, more and more were added to it. Look, as a software developer with over 25 years experience, I understand that things evolve and scope changes. But there's something about the constant promise of future functionality that feels a little bit like scope creep. You know, those grand promises that keep getting pushed into the distant future? Here's the thing though, Pyro is still the system that fans have been waiting for. Even after all of the delays, one of those key things that we've all been hoping would finally come to fruition. Pyro represents something bigger than just another system in the game. It symbolizes the expansion of Star Citizen, the very thing that was promised all those many years ago. Fans are really hungry for this expansion, and it's a symbol that CIG finally can deliver on their early promises. After all, Pyro was supposed to be one of 100 systems available at launch. Yeah, there's a lot of excitement surrounding it, even if it has been almost forever since it was first mentioned. And now, things are shifting again. Big changes are coming to Star Citizen, particularly when it comes to the planet generation technology. With all the new tech being developed, we're looking at the potential to see a massive overhaul how additional systems get generated. This could even affect what Pyro actually ends up looking like in the end. Think about it. Pyro as we know it may not even look the same by the time this is fully fleshed out in a couple of years. Tech that CIG is introducing could fundamentally change the scope of Pyro, maybe even making what we've seen look completely different from the Pyro we were first promised. Where does it actually leave us? Well, I think the key takeaways is that Pyro, while still a major milestone for Star Citizen, has taken a much different path than we originally expected. The system itself is still coming, but the full scope, the Big Bang version of it, if you will, might not actually arrive for years to come. In the meantime, we'll have to wait and see how this new tech shakes up the development process. Whether Pyro turns out to be a shadow of its former self or something even bigger. The launch of Pyro might be more than just the space system itself. It represents CIG's ability to deliver a second set of gameplay, and ultimately the ability to deliver on promises made earlier this year. Let's dive in further. First up, let's talk about the diversity in gameplay that comes with the Pyro system. If you've spent any time in Stanton, you know that it's a relatively safe, heavily regulated system. Kind of the kid-friendly zone in Star Citizen. But Pyro? Let's just say that it's more like the Wild West of space. The system is all about the danger, the freedom, and the opportunity that comes with it. Pyro is a hostile system made up of several planets and moons with environments ranging from fiery and volatile to desolate and unstable. It's got the kind of atmosphere where every trip feels risky. And that's what makes it so exciting. These different environments create new challenges for players, whether you're navigating a volcanic planet or trying to survive in a system with constant solar flares. The system is absolutely packed with new gameplay opportunities that you just won't find anywhere else in the verse. But it's not just the environments that make Pyro stand out. The system introduces new factions and narrative possibilities. You'll encounter pirates, smugglers, and rogue states who aren't interested in following any rules. This is really where the underworld thrives. And with that comes new challenges for players willing to get their hands dirty. And here's where Pyro really plays a part into the larger plan for Star Citizen. While Pyro may be chaotic, it's actually helping to shape a safer, more regulated Stanton system. Think of it as the contrast that makes Stanton shine. By offering a kid-friendly zone for those who prefer less risk, Pyro also gives players who want to embrace the chaos a freedom to do so, while the more established systems like Stanton can remain more controlled and secure. Really a beautiful balancing act. Taking a deeper dive into player engagement, Pyro isn't just about making things difficult, but about opening up new opportunities. Whether you're an explorer seeking the big discovery, a trader trying to score big in a lawless system, or a pirate looking for the perfect target, Pyro is something for everyone. For the explorers, Pyro is a goldmine of uncharted territory. New planets, moons, space stations, and plenty of dangerous zones to navigate. There's a lot of room for players to carve out their own space in this system, actually. And for those of us who are into trading, Pyro presents new opportunities for high-risk, high-reward commerce. The stability of the system could mean huge profits for anyone willing to take the gamble and move goods through this hostile territory. You can bet there's plenty of players looking to make a quick buck by trading in Pyro's lawless space. But of course, there's a dark side, the pirates among us. Pyro is a perfect hunting ground. With its dangerous terrain and less regulated space lanes, it's a prime spot to raid unsuspecting traders or take out anyone who looks vulnerable. Pyro will likely fuel an exciting new economy where players can thrive, or fall victim to a ruthless pirate attack. Now, the big question on everyone's mind, is Pyro the moment that CIG is finally delivering on their Kickstarter promises? For many backers, this is the first big sign of that vision of an expansive, dynamic universe that's starting to take shape. When CIG first launched the Kickstarter, they promised a universe where players would have total freedom to explore, trade, fight, and change the world around them. Pyro takes us one step closer into realizing that vision. With new systems like Pyro opening up and adding so much new gameplay, many fans feel like the promises made years ago are starting to come to life. Sure, still a lot of work to do, but this update is a major milestone for the game. And while Pyro is a wild system, it's also a vital part to the living economy of Star Citizen. The new mechanics, locations, and introduction of new factions are starting to create a truly dynamic world. It's all about expanding the lore and delivering on the promises of a player-driven narrative. Whether it's battling pirates, completing missions, or surviving the harsh environments, the new world of Star Citizen is becoming real, and it's exciting. But here's the problem. When you separate out the marketing hype from what's actually going to be delivered in Release 4.0 with Pyro, you're left with a major delta between what was promised versus what we're actually going to get. Let's dig in a little more. Alright, let's start with a big question. What are we actually getting with the Pyro system? We've all seen the concept art, heard the developer promises, and felt the buzz around Pyro being the next big thing in Star Citizen. But when you look at the history of the game, it's hard to ignore all the delays, the cut features, the mechanics that are really just baked in the past. The real question is, are they really delivering Pyro, or is this just another way to keep us hooked while we wait for the rest of the game to be finished? Looking at what's being released right now, you gotta wonder, are these systems actually fully realized or just placeholder content? Given CIG's track record, it feels like Pyro is going to be a system with a lot of unfinished mechanics. We've seen this before. Systems get launched with limited features, only to be expanded over time. While expansion is a great thing, if Pyro is just more of the same with parts missing or half-baked, How long will it take before the full experience really lands? Let's talk about the community reaction. Just say players are not happy. We've seen tons of complaints in the forums about the delays, the cut content, the lack of depth. And after years of waiting, players are starting to feel a little bit let down by this release of Pyro. Why? Because compared to previous systems like Stanton, Pyro just doesn't feel as complete. Players expected a fully featured system with a living, breathing economy and dynamic gameplay. Instead, many are getting a finished environment with limited content. Take Stanton, for example. It's massive, a highly detailed system of interconnected locations and a diverse range of gameplay activities. Pyro, on the other hand, feels like a shadow of what we've been promised. Yeah, it looks cool with the fiery moons and dangerous environments, but what does it actually offer players right now? Limited missions, sparse resources, and a system that feels like it's only half activated. Not the fully featured player-driven space that we've all been promised. So here's another thing to think about. Piracy and the criminal activity. These are already huge parts of Star Citizen where players are already preying on one another. That's key. Player-driven and it feels organic. So what's actually new about Pyro's criminals? Honestly, not much. Piracy already exists in Star Citizen, and it's one of the biggest driving forces for Pyro. Sure, Pyro's lawless nature might make it a little bit more dangerous, but fact is, we've been doing this in Stanton for years. Pirates are already out there. Not like Pyro is suddenly reinventing the wheel. You could argue that what we're getting is more of the same, but now it's just a different coat of paint. And if this is really where CIG wants to focus their efforts, is it really worth the wait? It really leads me to the question of why not just deliver these features to Stanton first? Instead of worrying about jump points and fancy new systems, why not take all of those assets, the mechanics, and just drop them into Stanton where they can actually be tested and used by players? Stanton's already got the infrastructure, the economy, and the groups to support it. So why launch Pyro before all the core systems and features are fully fleshed out? CIG has already built a working system in Stanton. If Pyro is going to be this bare bones, wouldn't it make sense to just expand what's already there and spend the rest of the time focusing on stabilizing the game so it's actually playable? Players are already disappointed by the limited scope of Pyro. Why not scale it back and focus on delivering something that actually works, rather than chasing the hype of a massive, unfinished system? At the end of the day, Pyro might look cool, but if it's just a reskin version of what's already out there with half-baked mechanics, is it really worth the hype? Players are frustrated. CIG has a long road ahead in delivering a complete Star Citizen universe, and right now it feels like Pyro is just a half step in that direction. So let me know in the comments. Are you excited for Pyro? Or do you think that CIG really needs to stop hyping new features and focus on delivering what they've already promised? I've been in the software industry for over 25 years now, working my way up the ranks from a junior developer to the very top. I've seen it all. I've given all the excuses there are to give at this point, and I recognize the pattern that CIG is in right now, because I've lived similar situations in my own career. Here's my 2 cents. First off, let's address the elephant in the room. Pyro in its current state is not a fully realized system that we were all promised. It's going to be a feature-reduced version of what's planned for the future. That doesn't make it any less important. In fact, an essential step forward in Star Citizen's development cycle. Why? Because it's not actually about Pyro itself, it's about CIG finally showing us that they can deliver on the promises at a time that they're losing interest and faith of their backers. After years of waiting, backers want to see that the team is making progress. And Pyro is one of the first signs that the game is actually moving forward, even if it is just a skeleton of what it will be. Let's be real, when you think about Pyro, it's not really the system that matters to most people right now. What people care about is that CIG is actually delivering. This launch is about proving that the team is following through with the promises that were made years ago. That's what really counts at this point, delivering something new to keep the backers engaged and feeling like the vision is still alive. It's hard to ignore that Star Citizen has hit a critical reflection point. Look at the current state of the community. Content creators, who were once the biggest ambassadors for the game, are back and not playing anymore. And that's a big deal, because if they're not playing the game anymore, what does it mean for new players? If the influencers who have supported Star Citizen for all these years aren't excited about it, could anyone else be? CIG really needs to reignite that excitement, not just for new players, but for their loyal backers as well. Pyro is a chance to say, look, we're still here. We're still building this amazing game, and not just about making empty promises anymore. Without this step, Star Citizen risks losing the support of the players who have been patiently waiting for many years. Let's talk about the pressure that CIG is facing right now. For the past few months, we've seen a decline in funding and sales, and backers are starting to voice their frustration more than ever. Why? Because we've got to ask, how is it that Star Citizen is the most expensive game ever made without actually delivering any complete features? Take a look at some of the features that we've been promised. Sure, it's there, but it's kind of half-baked with mechanics missing, like refining and a bunch of ships. Salvaging, it's partially there, but the full system, like component salvaging, is barely even close to complete, with only being able to salvage off a couple of ships. Cargo hauling, getting closer, but it's still really buggy, and the gameplay loop needs a lot of work still. And while racing and piracy are probably the closest to being fully fleshed out, let's not forget, those are player-created activities, not core game mechanics that CIG initially developed. CIG backers, people who have invested millions in this game, are starting to get impatient. If they want to keep us around, they need to deliver on something. Anything shows progress. And right now, Pyro is our biggest chance to give us a crumb of what's to come. Pyro might not be the complete system we've envisioned, but it's really the next step to a larger picture. By launching Pyro, even in a reduced form, CIG can show that they're still progressing and still committed to the game. The launch of Pyro is an important milestone that gives us hope for the future updates and expansions. I've done the same thing in my career time and time again. I've seen the same symptoms with people starting to turn their back through no fault of my own. And now it's time that CIG needs to do something big, just to remind their loyal backers of that dream. CIG needs to deliver Pyro, maintain the trust, and keep people engaged. If they don't, they risk losing all of their backing and the very loyal people they built this game on. So while Pyro might be far from perfect, the release is more about delivering on promises, even in a reduced fashion, than about the specific content itself. If CIG wants to continue the journey with their backers and show that they are still capable of delivering, Pyro is the first breadcrumb that we all need to stay invested. But why do you think? Is Pyro actually enough to keep you engaged? Are you feeling frustrated with the delays and the incomplete features? Let me know in the comments. If you made it this far in the video, I just want to thank you for sticking around, and please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button for more updates on the variety of Star Citizen content to come in the future. Thank you very much, and have a great day.